We're concluding a series we started 3 weeks ago on Easter Sunday. This is the third week. And so we're wrapping it up today, just looking about how the resurrection changes everything. I mean, obviously we talk about it on Easter, we talk about it that week and everything, but we've kind of expanded it this week to think, because it's more than just a story, it's more than just a foundational part of our faith. I mean, it really, literally changed everything. It changed our relationship with God, taking our sin, taking our guilt, taking our shame, I mean, erasing that from our past and giving us a future, a new chance at life. We looked last week at how it changed death, whenever we breathe our last breath, that is not the end of us, right? We will continue on. That we have with this body, and we think of life as like the worst of human tragedies, but the reality is it's not. I mean, our life continues. Because of the resurrection, we have that hope. We have that understanding because it's happened to Jesus. Today, we're going to talk about how through the resurrection, God makes everything new. I mean, everything, right? I mean, he makes everything new. He gives us a new future home in heaven. We'll kind of touch on that, but also by transforming us today. He makes me new through the power of the resurrection. And new is kind of a big thing. You know how when you're a kid, not everybody does this, but you have like that maybe toy or that blanket that likes your security. When I was a kid, I had a teddy bear. I mean, I'll admit it. I held onto that puppy way longer than I probably should have. I won't tell you how old I was. I think I lost it last year, but no, it wasn't that long. But I mean, for like a long time. It was my baby bear, I called it, and I was old enough that my older brothers made fun of me for having baby bear all the time, and if they wanted to get to me, they could just throw it on the floor or step on its head or something, and I'd be like, oh, it'd ruin my life. You know, it was my security. I don't know what it is. I just loved baby bear. Our youngest daughter, Shanna, when she was a little baby, she had a security thing too. Here's the deal. We had a quilt given to us by a good friend of ours, and it was a nice quilt. I'm not like necessarily a quilt guy, but this is a cool quilt. And you know how quilts are. They're different types of material sewn together, making a pattern, you know, and this one was a cool pattern. Sometimes I'm like, oh, whatever, but I kind of liked this one. And so it was ours, Cheryl and I, it was our special blanket. But when Shannon was born, and she stole it from us, basically. I mean, this is an infant, and she was able to do this. Well, you know how it is, your baby. What we did with our kids, maybe because we couldn't afford to do anything else, is we, you have a baby, and your whole world centers around them. So you put a blanket down on the floor, and you put the baby on the blanket, and you just sit back and watch. I mean, it's like it's cheaper than going to the mall or anything. And we could do that for hours, just sit there and watch them. And so one time, she was a little fussy or something, and for whatever reason, we decided to put a blanket down, put her on the floor, and we took our quilt, it must have been handy, and put it on the floor and put her on it. And like, it didn't take long, and like, she put her hand down, and she felt one of the materials, I don't know which one it was, and all of a sudden, she was like, oh, okay. She's an infant, or I mean, like, weeks old, I mean, like super small. And there was something about that one material. It was all over the quilt, but it was something about that one material that just kind of calmed her soul. And I don't know when it happened. It happened a few times. You use the blanket. It happened to be handy. You put it down. We noticed a pattern. This blanket does something for her. And so we kept using it. Pretty soon she was taking naps with that blanket. Somewhere along the line, she officially stole it from us and called it her blanket. And I just got lost in the translation there somewhere. She started, when she got old enough to talk, somehow she came up with the term picking blanket. This is my picking blanket. Well, what's a picking blanket? Well, because I pick at it. and so that's all she did. She'd just sit there and pick at it and rub it between her fingers, and it made her happy. Now, you do that long enough, and you're going to wear anything out. And it took, a few years, but she wore that puppy out to the point that really all that was left of that thing was like the backing and some straggly rags hanging that used to be sewn together. I mean, that thing was absolutely trashed after years of her using that. I mean, it was never like an obsession to the point of like we didn't have to travel with it. I mean, that type of thing. Sometimes, kids have something you have to try. I probably took Baby Bear with me everywhere. But it wasn't that big of a deal, but she loved to pick on that little blanket. But it got to that point where it was like, we got to throw this away. If we put it in the washer now, it's going to come out disintegrated. I mean, it's done. Right. And I don't think she like had a huge moment like, oh, this is terrible. But I know deep in her heart that the thing is, it's pretty hard to say goodbye to your security blanket that's given so much comfort. She didn't want a new one. We offered, oh, we'll go buy you a new blanket. She said, I don't really need a new blanket. She wanted that one. She wanted that one made new. And the thing is, that's really how we are with most things in life. We don't necessarily want a replacement for what's not working. We want what's not working to be made new. I don't necessarily want a new spouse, but I want my spouse to do more of what my expectations, meet my expectations. I don't necessarily need new friends. I want my old friends maybe to behave in a certain way that I feel comfortable around them. Maybe they're acting kind of crazy. We don't need a new political system, but wouldn't it be cool if the people in the political system acted like adults? I mean, I'm talking both sides. I mean, it's just like, they're just, sometimes I watch TV and I think, stop it. We don't need a new system. We want the new system to be made new. You know what? I don't need a new body. But I don't really also want to deal with the effects of me harming my body for years, cramming too much food in it and the wrong food. I just want this one made new. We're surrounded by things that have fallen apart. And so that's the big statement, the bring home statement today is we don't need new things. We need things to be made new. Now, in a spiritual sense, there is a sickness around us. We are infected as a world with this poison, with the selfishness, with greed, with pride, with lust. There's something very broken in our world. It causes all kinds of crazy things to happen. You don't have to look very hard. You don't even have to think very hard of all the things going out there. You turn on the television and you find out someone in Minneapolis took a 5-year-old boy and threw him down 3 stories at a mall because I feel like killing someone. Where does that come from? I mean, honestly, the next time you turn on the news, someone has shot up a synagogue or a church or a school, or there was a warning of someone threatening to shoot up a school or at a workplace or anything like that. We're ripping unborn children out of their mother's wombs as if those children have no rights. You're like, where does that come from? Where do we come up with those kind of conclusions? I read a couple days ago an article in the USA Today. The title just grabbed me like, yeah, I kind of want to know the answer to this question. Who buys a trafficked child for sex? Like, that's always been my question. Like, because you hear the reports, you hear it's happening, you're like, well, who does that? I mean, who says, hey, there's a child, I'd like to do something terrible to them? And so I read this article because the answer they said was otherwise ordinary men. Here's a couple little clips from this article. The buyers who fuel the child sex trade are seldom held accountable. Most just blend back into their families, jobs, and neighborhoods until next time. And see, here's the thing, it goes into more detail. There's all kinds of great programs they have to help children who've been through this, who've been victims in this, to try to help them regain their life and rebuild their life. There are people in jail who are organizers of the sex trafficking. There's still plenty who aren't yet, but rarely do the people purchasing it. If they take away the demand, it's not going to be there, right? I mean, I keep saying if the church just keeps making disciples, no one will think, hey, there's a child, I'd like to destroy them, because Jesus people don't do that. That we just don't. The problem is we don't have enough Jesus people out there. So anyway, that's my easy answer to it. Anyway, here's another clip. The author writes, in the past 16 months, I've witnessed the worst of human behavior while reporting for this project. One that's taken me across 8 countries on 5 continents. I've talked to a 6-year-old, that's not a typo, a 6-year-old trafficking victim, visited a shelter with the oldest survivors, who were only 11, met a 5-year-old boy living with his parents in a squalid brothel in India, and interviewed survivors who were raped by hundreds of men. Yet, the ordeal of that one child from Illinois, beaten for saying no, has haunted me in particular. It's stuck in my mind because it exposes a harsh truth. In the sex trade, buyers and sellers view the children they torment as property, and property cannot say no. They're not even looking at them as human beings. They're not thinking, hey, this is a child. This is a service I paid for, and I'm going to. In the context of the story, someone said, no, that's not, I'm not going to do the particular thing you want. And the person got beaten because they said no to a client. Another clip. This project began with a question. The question I often have. Who buys a 15-year-old child for sex? The answer, many otherwise ordinary men. They could be your coworker, doctor, pastor, or spouse. Does that trouble you? Not your pastor, by the way. But that means it's happening, and people who represent Jesus are out there doing this stuff. They're in all walks of life. Next clip, a 17-year-old survivor from the Midwest trafficked when she was 15, said about said about the more than 150 men who purchased her in a month. Some could be upstanding people in the community. It was mostly people in their 40s living in the suburbs who were coming to get their stuff they were missing. That's where we live. That's our neighborhoods. People around here saying, hey, yeah, I'll go ahead. I got some cash. I'll go ahead and buy me a child. In 2016, the Center for Court Innovation found that between, listen to this, 8,900 and 10,500 children ages 13 to 17 are commercially exploited each year in this country. Now, it is hard for me to read an article like that and just kind of go on with my day like, oh, that was interesting reading. I mean, because that I don't know. Actually, this wasn't even in today's sermon until this morning. I woke up, I thought, wow, what in the world causes that? What in the world has broken our world so much that this is even something we talk about? And it's happening around us. Our world is a mess, and it's breaking more and more people through the things we're doing to the people around us. Now, society tries to process this stuff, not only this, but the shootings and all the different things, right? We try to process it, but we don't know how, society as a whole. They don't know what to do about it. Maybe we just need to create more laws. That'll help. Maybe we need to raise more awareness, and that will help it. Or hold big rallies and hold signs and shout stuff, or post some meme on Facebook or something, that'll make it all stop. But here's the deal, laws and rallies and signs and memes and all that stuff, it won't fix it. It's a broken world. The Bible has very clear words for this, for what's going on at the heart of the multiple issues out there. It uses words like sin and evil, and it's in the world, it's everywhere. Evil holds a grip on the world. Sin has infected the human heart. Now, you and I may not be murderers. We might not be out on the prowl for a child, but by the grace of God, we aren't far from it. Any of us could have the ability at any moment to go there if the right circumstances were before us, because we are infected by that same sin and that same evil. We just happen to, if you're a Jesus person, have taken care of some issues, right? See, we don't need new things, new laws, new rules, new ways, new explanations. What we need is to be made new. That's what changes things. That's what turns this whole thing around. Now, the Apostle Paul writes, and he talks about a huge change that will occur someday when everything, total reset button on the world. This is in Corinthians 15, in the context we've been talking about. Behold, I tell you a mystery. We shall not all sleep, but we shall all be changed. It's a change coming, right? In a moment, in the twinkling of an eye, at the last trumpet. For the trumpet will sound, the dead will be raised imperishable, and we shall be changed. For this perishable body must put on the imperishable, and this mortal body must put on immortality. When the perishable puts on the imperishable, and puts on the immortality, then shall come to pass the saying that is written, death is swallowed up in victory. O death, where is your victory? O death, where is your sting? See, for now, we live in this world of sin. We live in this world of evil and a culture that can't figure out how to process all of that. But the day is coming. The day will come when everything will change. The mortal will put on immortality. Sin will no longer reign. Now, that's a pretty final thing we're talking about. Just prior to these words, Paul writes about this return of Christ and how it will bring about the destruction of sin and death itself. It's a few verses earlier, in verse 24, 1 Corinthians 15. Then comes the end when he delivers the kingdom to God the Father after destroying every rule, every authority and power, for he must reign until he has put all of his enemies under his feet. The last enemy to be destroyed is death. We read that last week. John talks about this new world as well in Revelation 21. Then I saw a new heaven and a new earth, for the first heaven and the first earth has passed away. The sea was no more. I saw the holy city, New Jerusalem, coming down from out of heaven, from God, prepared as a bride, adorned for her husband. And I heard a loud voice from the throne saying, behold, the dwelling place of God is with man. And he will dwell with them, and he will be his people, and God himself will be with them as their God. He will wipe away every tear from their eyes, and death shall be no more. Neither shall there be mourning or crying or pain anymore. For the former things have passed away. And he who was seated on the throne said, behold, I am making all things new. New. I'm going to change. You don't need new things, but it's going to make this existing thing new. I'm going to change it. Death will be no more. He'll wipe every tear from your eyes. That sounds okay, right? No more tears. There's so much pain in this world. No more pain. No more crying. The former things passed away, God himself making all things new. See, this is not about us escaping the evil. Do you ever just think, man, I just want to get out of here? I just want, come on, Jesus, come quickly. I want to escape the evil and the pain and the disgust that's around me. This isn't about us escaping the evil of earth and finally getting to heaven where it's paradise and we get to, sing songs and not cry anymore. This is about God actually coming here, restoring, remaking this world that we live in and filling it with his presence. It's pretty easy to look around and see everything that's wrong with the world. I mean, you can't help it. You just can't. It's just everywhere. But the fact of the matter is that same poison has infected us. We're just a couple steps away from the worst thing you can imagine. There are just no people out there who've maybe gone a little further than you have. It's infected them, it's infected you, it's infected me. It's sin, and it's evil. But thank God, what we celebrate in the resurrection is that there is a cure for all of it. It's a cure, not a glossing over or not a little Band-Aid, but an actual cure for this whole thing. So we discussed the last couple of weeks, by going to the cross, Jesus took on the full weight of evil, all of it, the full weight of sin, the most disgusting thing that comes to mind that could possibly be done. Jesus took that full weight of evil upon himself. And the Father raised Jesus up 3 days later, proclaiming victory over death, over sin, over evil itself. There is a cure. And that victory is not just talking about a new creation for the world, that's going to happen one day, that we've addressed, that we've touched on. It also means a new creation for me. No matter what I've done, no matter where I've been, what mistakes I've gone through, or terrible things I've thought or watched or been a part of, there is a new creation process that is available for me, for you, for the people, anyone out there. Paul wrote in 2 Corinthians 5, therefore, if anyone is in Christ, he's a new creation. Think about that. A new creation. The old has passed away. Behold, the new has come. You didn't need to be a new person. He needed to take who you were and make you new. That's what I've needed. That's what you needed. That's what society needs. They don't need more rules and regulations and chains. They need to be made new. They need change happen from within. You become a follower of Jesus. A new creation begins to happen in your life. A transformation begins to take place. You feel the difference in your life. You think differently than you used to. You can attest to that, can't you? As a follower of Jesus, you think differently, you act differently, you see the world differently than you used to. God is taking your soul that was damaged and corrupted by evil and sin. We've all been there, we're all part of this, and he transforms it into something beautiful, a new creation. That's why we have church. Sure, you can worship God from a fishing boat. But man, there's something about the saints of God getting together and celebrating the resurrection of Jesus that literally changed everything. If you're not on that path, obviously the fact that that article even mentioned pastors, you can go to church and not be on the path, right? If you're not on that path following Jesus, I would encourage you to jump on. You will never regret it. Oh, it might be tough sometimes, and it's a process, this transformation thing. I'm not saying it happens like in a twinkle of an eye of your transformation in this world, but it is. You will never regret following Jesus. You read his word, you do what it says, you follow his ways, you accept his grace and his forgiveness, baptize into his name, and see how he can make new things out of this old soul that's been corrupted. The message for all of us, it's for our friends, it's for our neighbors, it's for our coworkers. Man, we have a lot of work to do. That's how we change the world.